Hey everyone. So today we're going to dive into something that sounds really simple, but is actually, well, incredibly complex: how a company buys stuff. We're going to follow the entire journey, right? From a single request all the way up to it becoming a major asset on the books. Seriously, have you ever thought about it? I mean, somebody needs a new laptop or some software, or heck, a whole new office building. You'd think it's straightforward, but behind that one simple need, there's this massive, tangled system of requests, approvals, high-level strategies, and a whole lot of rules. We're going to zoom out, step by step, and really see the big picture. Okay, so our story has to start somewhere, right? It begins at the smallest possible level. One person, inside a company, realizing they need something. This is the tiny spark that gets the whole engine running. So that initial spark usually breaks down into these three key steps. Let's just imagine an employee, we'll call her Sam, needs a new tool for her sales team. First, she puts in the request. Simple enough. Second, that request goes up for approval. Her manager has to look at it, check if it's really needed, and most importantly, if there's any money in the budget for it. Finally, once it gets the green light, it goes over to the procurement team. They're the ones who actually go out and find a vendor. Looks clean on paper, but here's the thing. It's rarely that simple. And this is where our nice, clean story starts to get messy. That simple three-step process, it can turn into a massive bottleneck, just grinding everything to a halt. I love this quote because it just nails the central problem, doesn't it? The people who need stuff, they need it now. They needed it yesterday. That creates this intense pressure and urgency that the system just isn't built to handle. And that friction, right there, that's where all the problems start popping up. So why does it all break down? Well, as you can see here, it's pretty much a perfect storm of little frustrations. You've got people typing things in by hand, which takes forever. You have these ridiculously long approval chains where it has to go through like 5 different people. Communication is scattered everywhere. Some of it's in email, some of it's in Slack. On top of that, the rules are often unclear, and the different software systems don't even talk to each other. It's a recipe for total chaos. Okay, let's zoom out. We're going to pull back from the chaos of a single broken process and look at a much bigger challenge. How does a company deal with all of its suppliers at once? You know, businesses face this huge strategic decision. On the one hand, they could go all in with a single vendor. That makes things simple, you only have one relationship to manage, and you can probably get some sweet bulk discounts. But what happens if that one vendor has a problem? Your whole supply chain could just stop, dead in its tracks. So, on the other hand, you could use a bunch of different vendors. That gives you better prices because they're competing, you have more flexibility, and you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. But now you've got to manage all those different relationships. It's a classic balancing act between risk and complexity. So how do you handle all that complexity, especially when you're buying a lot of big, expensive stuff? Well, there's a really clever solution called bundling. Instead of trying to get separate financing for every single piece of equipment from every different vendor, a company can just group it all together. You get one application, one finance partner handles everything, all the gear shows up at the same time, and you make one single monthly payment. It's a really powerful way to cut through the noise. All right, let's take it to the next level and zoom out even further. What if it's not just one company trying to be strategic? What if an entire industry decided to pool its resources and buy together? And that's exactly the idea behind something called a group purchasing organization, or a GPO. This is huge in the healthcare world. Basically, a GPO gets a whole bunch of hospitals to band together to buy their supplies in bulk. By combining all their purchasing power, they can get way better prices than any one hospital could ever get on its own. You can think of it like a giant Costco for hospitals. They're buying everything from surgical gloves to MRI machines as one massive customer. So you're probably wondering, how do these GPOs make money? Well, their business model is actually surprisingly simple. The suppliers, the people selling the stuff, they pay the GPO a tiny administrative fee. On average, it's just 1.7% of the purchase price. That little fee is what funds the GPO's entire operation, letting them do all the hard work of negotiating contracts for the hospitals. But here's the really cool part. The GPOs don't just pocket all that money. Not even close. As this chart shows, they actually share a huge and growing chunk of those fees right back with the hospitals. You can see that by 2012, they were returning over 65% of the fees they collected. It just makes the whole system that much more valuable for everyone. And now it's time for our final zoom out. We're going to the very top. We're talking about huge, long-term investments that are wrapped up in a super complex web of financial rules. This is the world of capital expenditures, or what everyone calls CapEx. We are way past buying laptops now. This is about funding massive projects, things like new factories, giant data centers, or major infrastructure that are going to define the future of the company. And when the stakes are this high, the process becomes incredibly formal and very, very specialized. And you can tell just how specialized this world is by looking at the jargon. It's a real alphabet soup. What is basically the same thing, a request form for a big investment, has a different name everywhere you go. In oil and gas, it's an AFE. In most companies, it's a CER. In manufacturing, a CAR. They all do the same job, but the different names just go to show you how these high-stakes processes are custom-built for each industry. And if you want proof of just how deep this rabbit hole goes, look no further than this. We're talking about the nitty-gritty of global accounting standards. For these massive projects, international rules and US rules actually disagree on something as specific as when you can add borrowing costs to the asset's value. It sounds like a tiny detail, but it has enormous financial consequences. And it just shows you the level of precision you need when you're playing with this kind of money. Phew. Okay, so after that huge journey, all the way from a single request to global accounting standards, let's bring it all back together and look at the full picture we've just painted. Think about where we started, right? With one employee clicking submit on a request form. We saw how that simple action can get completely bogged down in bottlenecks. Then we zoomed out to see the strategy behind managing dozens of vendors. Then we went even bigger to see how whole industries can team up to get more buying power. And we ended in the high-stakes world of multi-million-dollar investments. It's all connected. It's all part of the same giant ecosystem. And that, really, brings us to the most important question. These systems, from the tiniest request all the way up to the biggest investment, they aren't just abstract ideas. They are running inside your own organization right now. They're deciding how money gets spent and how the real work gets done. So after seeing this whole picture, the question is, how well do you actually understand the ones that affect you every day?